The Chargers have hit that point where one bad read can cost you an entire season, and that is exactly why this moment cannot be treated like some ordinary offseason. Los Angeles changed coordinators, attacked specific weak spots on the roster, flirted with big swing possibilities on the market, and now heads into the draft with real pressure not to waste this momentum. Today, we're separating what's a real signal, what's pure speculation, and most importantly, which decision could raise this team's ceiling in a major way. If you live and breathe Chargers football every single day, hit subscribe right now because this debate is about to get serious. The first read here is simple. Anybody looking at the Chargers offseason and saying nothing big happened is watching headlines instead of direction. Real change does not always start with fireworks. Sometimes it starts with alignment. Mike McDaniel comes in to give the offense an identity. Chris O'Leary takes over the defense needing as much talent as he can get, and the front office attacked areas that needed immediate answers. Tyler Biadasz and Keaton Mitchell are not throwaway moves. Khalil Mack staying in Los Angeles is not some minor footnote either. And Dalvin Tomlinson brings size, experience, and stability to the middle of a defensive front that needed exactly that. But the most interesting part might be what could still be coming. The Chargers have 5 picks in the draft, 3 inside the top 100, and that is exactly the kind of setup where a smart franchise finds value without forcing the issue. That is where Devon Marshall comes in. The virtual meeting with the NC State corner is real, not a promise he will be drafted. But the signal is there, and it makes sense. Marshall has real ball production, interceptions, pass breakups, and clear growth from 2024 to 2025. For a first-year play caller on defense like O'Leary, adding another defensive back with instincts and playmaking ability could be the kind of move that sharpens the whole unit. And there is one thing people always underestimate. Real depth in the secondary changes everything. It changes camp. It changes competition. It changes the ceiling of the defense. Dante Jackson was solid, Cam Hart and Tarheeb still already hold important roles, but no serious team builds a good secondary by thinking only about the names on the starting depth chart. If Marshall becomes a real draft target, that would not be a luxury move. It would be a smart answer for a group that needs more players who can take the ball away and speed up this defense's evolution. Now the story gets hotter because DK Metcalf is the kind of name that shakes loose the kind of ambition that separates a solid team from a dangerous one. But let's keep this clean from the jump. There is no deal done, no agreement close, and the scenario being discussed is still speculative. What exists right now is a projected trade idea where the Chargers would get Metcalf, while the Steelers would get Quentin Johnston and a 2027 second-round pick. That is not a completed move. That is a rumor with logic behind it. That said, if we're just talking football fit, it is impossible to pretend this wouldn't shake the entire structure of the offense. Metcalf would not arrive to be just another body, split headlines, or sit quietly in the room. He would come in as a physical centerpiece, an instant vertical threat, and a red zone weapon built to terrorize defenses. And that is exactly the kind of presence that changes the whole conversation around Justin Herbert. Suddenly, you're not just talking about what the scheme could become. You are talking about a real offense that can impose its will on people. The toughest part of this debate is Quentin Johnston. And this is the part that makes people uncomfortable. If the Chargers ever truly considered a move like this, it would be a quiet admission that the team no longer wants to wait forever on development when there is a chance to land a proven game changer. That does not mean Johnston has no talent. It means that in a competitive window, too much patience can become its own mistake. For Pittsburgh, the logic goes in a different direction. Ease the financial burden, get younger, and add draft capital. On paper, it makes sense. For Los Angeles, it would be a brutal statement of urgency. So the question is not just whether the rumor sounds exciting. The question is whether the Chargers are willing to act like a franchise that actually understands the moment it is in. Because bringing in Metcalf, if this ever moves from speculation into something real, would be a ceiling move. A statement move. The kind of move that tells the league this offense does not just want to function better, it wants to scare people. If the DK Metcalf rumor lights the fuse on the offense, Gabe Jacas shifts the spotlight to something a lot of people forget when they talk about the Chargers: defensive staying power. Because teams that truly want to compete do not live off splash moves alone. They live off strong rotation, smart succession, and getting the next impact piece ready before need turns into desperation. That is exactly why this top 30 visit matters. We are not talking about some random name tossed onto the draft radar. We are talking about a pass rusher with real production and a legit body of work. In 2025, Jacas posted 11 sacks and 13.5 tackles for loss at Illinois. The year before, he was disruptive again, and across his full college career, he stacked up 27 sacks and 35.5 tackles for loss. That does not guarantee stardom in the NFL, but it does prove there is real production behind the projection. What makes this visit even more meaningful is the timing. Khalil Mack is back, yes, but he is back on a one-year deal. That alone forces Los Angeles to think with urgency and intelligence at the same time. It is not enough to be grateful Mack is still here and push succession planning down the road. If Jacas really impressed during the visit, the interest makes perfect sense. He brings size, explosion, and a developmental profile that fits the kind of attacking defense the Chargers want to keep alive. And one more thing matters here. When a prospect like that walks into the building and meets a veteran like Mack, the process is also about maturity, mindset, and culture fit. That stuff matters this close to the draft. So now I want your take. If you had to choose right now, would you prioritize an edge rusher like Gabe Jacas in the second round, or would you pour more draft capital into another area of the defense? And now we hit one of the most sensitive debates of the entire offseason. Keenan Allen is still on the market, and the Chargers have not made a final call on bringing him back. That alone creates tension. Because we are not talking about just any veteran. We are talking about a receiver who still produced, still handled volume, and still gave Justin Herbert a trusted target in big moments. So the question is not whether Allen can still help. The question is why Los Angeles still has not decided whether it wants that security back in the building. The most logical read right now is that the team is waiting on the draft. And that makes sense, but only to a point. The Chargers have made it pretty clear they want a younger, faster receiver room built around what Mike McDaniel wants this offense to become. Keandre Lambert-Smith and Trey Harris should have bigger roles, and that tells you the plan involves youth. But youth without conviction turns into chaos. If the front office truly believes in this pivot, then it has to attack the draft with force and clarity. The names tied to that path help explain the choice in front of them. Brennan Thompson brings rare vertical speed and could stretch the field in a violent way. Deion Burks gives you a different profile, more separation underneath, better feel for space, more reliability in the intermediate game. Skylar Bell brings versatility, strong production, and the ability to line up in different roles. None of them is Keenan Allen right now, and that is exactly the point. Drafting one of them would be a bet on what this offense can become, not on what it already knows. But there is real risk in that bet. If Los Angeles waits too long, does not get the right prospect, and still loses Allen, then there will be no pretty spin left to save that decision. Because one thing is getting younger with a plan. Something very different is weakening the room because of hesitation. At this stage of the offseason, the Chargers need to choose between safe continuity and calculated reinvention. Living in the middle would be the worst possible outcome. At the end of the day, that is what all four of these stories are really showing us. The Chargers are not just filling out a roster. They are deciding what kind of team they want to be in 2026. Devon Marshall and Gabe Jacas represent a chance to strengthen a defense that still needs to stay aggressive and deep. The DK Metcalf rumor, which is still only speculation, shows the kind of offensive leap this team could chase if it wants to swing big. And the uncertainty around Keenan Allen exposes a very real dilemma between leaning on the safety of a trusted veteran or going all in on a younger receiver room. All of it points to the same conclusion. This is a moment for conviction. Los Angeles cannot afford to misread the board because a lukewarm decision right now could cap this team later. The talent is here, the options are on the table, and what is left is turning intention into a clear direction. If you want to stay locked in on every step of this build, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and drop a comment telling me which decision matters most for the Chargers' immediate future.